Welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're going to have a little look at the new charge and fight phase for 10th edition Warhammer 40,000. This video will serve as a kind of primer or introduction going over the very fundamental basics of these two core phases for any combat orientated army, especially the World Eaters. We're not really going to touch on any kind of jank or shenanigans right now. This is just going to go over the core mechanics, the kind of changes from 9th edition, and will hopefully help newer players who are coming into this game at this point kind of get a bit of a feel for how the game is going to play right now. Obviously there's a lot to learn with the new edition, but as a World Eaters focused channel, we are obviously going to focus on the charge phase and the fight phase. If you need stuff on shooting, you're going to have to find someone else for that, I'm afraid. We may touch on it occasionally, but that's not our specialty. Okay, so like I said, we're going to highlight some of the changes, and we're going to go over step by step through the charge phase and the fight phase, and I will try and demonstrate on the table, on Tabletop Simulator, which should be on the screen right now, what I'm talking about as I talk about it. I may have some images flash up during as well. I will try, if I have time, to edit them in, include page numbers and stuff like that of any information I refer to. So let's dive in. Let's start with the charge phase, because this obviously precedes the fight phase. If you want to fight, you've got to charge in there. This is very similar to how it's been in 9th edition, but we're going to assume that you are a brand new player and you have no idea what's going on. So the charge phase is essentially where you will move your models that you want to get into combat to kill your opponent's models. On the table right now, I've set up a little skirmish. We've got some 8-bound models right here, and we've got some Ultramarine Intercessors here and a Redemptor Dreadnought over there. I am going to want to charge my 8-bound in here and try and kill as many of these models as I can. There's also a cheeky lieutenant back there, but I'm not too worried about him. I need to make sure that these primary threats are dispatched. So as a World Eater, as a combat player, I'm going to rely on my combat prowess. Now I will just quickly caveat, any of the stats that pop up are still for 9th edition. This is nothing new, so just ignore these values that pop up on the screen. So the first thing you do in the charge phase, if it is your turn, is select an eligible unit to perform a charge with. This is a unit, any other rules withstanding, that has not advanced, has not fell back, is currently not engaged, and is not an aircraft. This unit of 8-bound fulfills these criteria. So I will then select a target within 12 inches. So if we zoom out a bit here, if I pick this guy, I could charge this Redemptor, I can charge these Intercessors, I cannot charge the Lieutenant, and I cannot charge these Intercessors over here. So my only eligible targets are these two units here. So what I would then do is roll the dice. I would roll 2d6. There may be stratagems or other abilities which alter this or may modify the dice, but we're going to assume we do not. So I need to roll, if I'm charging the Intercessors, I need at least a 4 on the dice, and if I'm charging the Redemptor, I'm going to need a 6. So obviously the 4 is much more mathematically likely than the 6. And, you know, maybe at this point in the game I'm not really relying on my luck too much. I just need a sure thing. So what I'm going to do at this point is roll 2 dice, and I'm just going to declare the Intercessors as my target. Now this would, if my opponent has not already used Overwatch in this turn, would allow them to declare Overwatch if they so choose. They may not. That's up to them. I'm taking the risk. Now what I could also do is charge with this squad of blue Intercessors, this squad of blue Exalted 8-bound into the Intercessors here with a 5-inch charge, but I'm not doing that. However, what they would do is it would, the new terrain rules are a bit different, so I'm not using them specifically correctly right now. We're going to assume this terrain piece is something that's basically offering obscuring, or the old term for obscuring. between these, and I could charge the Exalted in and wouldn't even have to worry about Overwatch, but we're not going into that much depth right now. So I need a 4-inch charge, 4 on the dice to succeed on this charge. So let's assume I do it. Let's say I'm incredibly lucky and I roll a 5. I've over excelled in this department. So at this point I would then move my models. So for me to legally complete this charge, my move must be sufficient so that I end the move within 1-inch engagement range of every target. So because I only declared the Primaris Intercessors, it succeeds. Had I have selected the Redemptor, who is 6 inches away, I would have failed and I wouldn't be able to do this charge. So I would now move my models, and I cannot move with an engagement range of any enemy model that I didn't declare a target of. So I will move my 4 inches. I said I rolled a 5, so we'll move here, come up here. Now, when you move your charging models, you, as the controlling player, select the order of which you move them. And when you move charging models, if you can end base to base, you must end base to base. So this model here, this particular 8-bound, could end its move base to base. However, I may not necessarily want that. So what I can do is move this guy first, and we'll move him his 5 here, and he is now within 1 inch. So now this guy, okay, he's still going to be able to end base to base, so that's fine. It's not ideal, but we have to do it. So sorry about that, just a bit of jank. So however, this 8-bound cannot end base to base, he can only move his 5. So we're going to move him here. So we've moved all our models 5 inches. In fact, what we would do is probably bring the champion back here for a reason I'm going to show you in a moment. So we've completed our charge move. We now go into the fight phase, assuming we have no other charges we want to complete. However, I just want to point out we have a sustained combat over here, which we will go into in a moment. And like I said, we do have a squad of Exalted 8-bound, which could have charged over here, and they could charge here. So we've got a 9-inch charge there and a 5-inch charge there. So what we'll do is we're going to attempt a multi-charge of a 9, which will need a 9 on the dice. Let's say we get our 9. So this guy is going to move 9 inches, and he is legal. This guy is going to come over here, and he can end base to base. Now this guy can come here. Let's make sure. Oh, yeah. Because if his movement, he can come over here and be base to base, which he should have to do. However, his movement would then mean we're not in coherency. So he will have to come over here. At least that is my understanding of the rules. I could be wrong on that one, but because his move, although he technically should be able to come and be base to base somewhere, because of coherency, you always have to be within 2 inches of another model at least. He would have to come here to retain coherency. Okay, so we are now entering the fight phase, and this is kind of made up of several micro steps. It's changed quite drastically from 9th edition. Now, all units in the fight's first phase, this gets very complicated. All units in the fight's first phase fight first, and then you resolve remaining combats. Typically, a unit that has charged has the fight's phase ability or keyword, or however we want to define it right now. So all my charging units have fights first. There are some units in the game which just get fights first as a native ability. I believe the Lion for the Dark Angels does, and there's going to be several more. If we're lucky, certain World Eaters will get it as well. But we don't know yet because we haven't seen all the data sheets. So at the moment, I have 2 charging units which have fights first. However, the opposing player fights first once you have resolved anyone who has fights first. You alternate starting with your opponent. So I will fight with my red 8-bound. I will then fight with my exalted 8-bound. However, because we have a sustained or ongoing combat over here, my opponent will have priority with these intercessors into these 8-bound. But we'll worry about that after. Okay, so I've charged here. So let's say I'm going to activate first my blue squad. I'm not worried about my opponent interrupting with his intercessors. The lieutenant, I feel, maybe could pick up one of these exalted 8-bound, and I don't want to lose them. So I'm going to activate blue squad here. So the first squad is going to have to pile in. So piling in and consolidating especially have changed as well. They are quite complex, and I'm probably not going to explain them the best way. There's going to be plenty of videos out there, and we'll probably do a video specifically on the pile in and consolidate move, quite frankly. But essentially it works like this. A pile in is a 3-inch move where models in a unit in the fight phase that's activating for the fight phase can move up to 3 inches if they are not in base to base contact already. So a unit, not a model, a unit must end pile-ins engaged 1 inches within a so long as one model is engaged with an enemy unit. That is a legal pile-in as long as your unit is engaged with an enemy unit, so one model only. That is the first stage. However, you must end pile-ins closest to the closest enemy model. The controlling player, in this case me, determines the order of movement, but you must also end in base-to-base contact if possible. So, starting with the blue squad, we know if I move this model first, he's going to have to end in base-to-base here. This model is already in base-to-base, and this exalted 8-bound could move in base-to-base. However, if this guy moves first, this guy will potentially lose coherency, and it's going to get complicated. So, what we would do is choose not to pile in with this squad. Because this model here is base-to-base with this model, both of them will be able to fight the intercessors, and the champion over here will be able to fight the lieutenant. So I'm choosing not to pile in here. Okay, bit complicated, and you know this is a null pile in, so it doesn't really make much sense. However, let's go through the fight. We don't know all the stats yet, but I'm gonna say we can kill the lieutenant, and I'm also gonna say we can kill probably 4 of the intercessors with the 8-bound. So yeah, we've killed 4 of the intercessors and the lieutenant with the exalted 8-bound. Now we're going to have to do our consolidate. This is similar to the pile-in, a 3-inch move for models that are not in base-to-base contact with an enemy model. You must be able to end a consolidate on a unit-by-unit basis within 1 inch, as in engagement range of an enemy unit, or if there are no units within that 3-inch, 4-inch range, you can go towards a objective. However, we do have a remaining model here, so we're going to have to go and do base-to-base stuff if we wish to consolidate. So what I'm going to do is consolidate here, then this guy, he's just going to move his 3 to remain legal. There we go. And these models over here are dead, so that was a legal move for them. That's fine. We're hopefully going to inflict battle shock on this intercessor in their command phase, but that's something else. So now you'll see that my 8-bound are still eligible to fight. They're still a charging unit. However, some of their charge target is now dead. So here's where things get interesting. If I position this right, okay, I did the measurements slightly wrong here. So, right. We charged only the intercessors. In 9th edition, that would mean we could only fight the intercessors. However, that caveat has been removed in 10th edition. You now can fight any unit that you are engaged with if you are eligible to fight. These 8-bound as a charging unit are eligible to fight. So what we can do at this point is, because we are equidistant from both these models, our pile-in move, we're going to have to end base-to-base with a model, because we can do. But we can actually pile in to the Dreadnought and fight it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pile in here and base to base him. Then this regular 8 bound is actually, should also be, when I planned this out beforehand, sorry, they would have ended equidistant. So this guy is now equidistant to both. So he is going to come up here and base to base. Then this guy can only get base to base with him, but he can go here. So now we have actually moved in such a way that we can put all of our attacks in this Redemptor Dreadnought that we didn't even declare as a charge. We may want to put a couple of attacks into this Intercessor to kill him if we particularly need to for points or something like that. But we can attack this Redemptor with our 8 bound, and I don't think we'll kill it, but we will put some hurting on him for sure. So let's say we take him down some wounds. He's going to fight back and probably kill a couple of our models, quite frankly, because Redemptors are pretty killy. Then he may choose to consolidate into us, which is fine. We will then go over to our sustained combats, because that is all the units with fights first. I actually did him out of order. So the Intercessors will go next. They may kill, in fact I don't think they would, they may injure one of our 8 bound, who will then promptly turn around, pile in. Excuse me while we get this, there would have been something like that. And probably delete these Intercessors. Let's just throw them off the table. There we go. Now, the Redemptor at the moment is obviously a board state that we have invented, is the closest model, so we can consolidate that way if he was within 3, but he's not. There is, however, the potential to move on to an objective here, as if you can consolidate and end within range of an objective, which is within 3 inches of it, you can consolidate that way. So, if this is going to work, we can move... Okay. Wow, this terrain didn't help. Oh, we've got a door here. Excellent. So he's just going to move up here. Good enough. And they'll come up as well. There we go. Good enough for government work. And we've taken this objective with our consolidate move. So there is a bit more finesse to pile-ins and consolidates and the charge. There's a lot of things I feel like we're going to have to remember and get down to muscle memory, because there are significant changes and the board state will affect how you pile in and consolidate especially a lot more. But we do have a bit more of a liberal ability to choose who we fight. Now this I feel was changed to our benefit, to a combat army's benefit, in light of things like Overwatch getting buffed. Overwatch is obviously available in the movement phase and the charge phase and seems to be a bit more dangerous for us. However, this does kind of help, I think. We're going to be able to pull off some sneaky little moves. Okay, so that's the fundamentals of the fight and the charge phases. I know it's a little bit mysterious. It still is to me. It's going to take me some games to get used to it. But it is what it is, and we're only going to learn these things by playing. I would definitely recommend reading through the core rules a couple of times. Testing it out either on Tabletop Simulator or on the table yourself. That's just really the best way to learn, short of actually getting the reps in. Now there's a few minor points I just want to touch on briefly. Other changes, I guess. So one big change is you now ignore terrain that is 2 inches or shorter when moving. It previously was 1 inch, it's now 2 inches, to cover things like these pipes. I believe in the rules these pipes are actually something that you can ignore when movement. So beforehand you would have to move, say, 2 inches up, 1 inch across, and then 2 inches down, which would be a 5-inch move just to move from here to here. Now if this fuel pipe is 2 inches or less in the movement phase and the charge phase, you will ignore it and you will just pay the 3 inches, 2 inches it cost me to move there, which is quite a significant change, and will affect quite a bit of the GW terrain at least. There has been a change to breachable. In fact, breachable doesn't actually exist anymore. In 9th edition, breachable was a rule that infantry, beasts and swarms had, which meant they could ignore ruins with the keyword breachable. They could just move through it as if it was not there. Now ruins themselves are just defined as something that infantry and beasts, not swarms, just infantry and beasts, can move through as if it's not there in the movement phase, charge phase, any kind of move. There is also a change to flying units and how they charge and how they move as well. Fly ignores all models when charging, but you measure through the air. So whilst we don't have any jump pack infantry at the moment, or jump pack units, if this exalted 8-bound, or this 8-bound model here, was standing here and he had a jump pack and he wanted to charge this chap right here, he would move on the diagonal. It's actually not capturing very well. Let's throw an intercessor in there. So you can see that 5.3 inches is what he... So he needed a 5-inch charge because he has to move through the air. Now if he was directly underneath, I don't know if it's going to make any difference. It'd be a 4-inch charge. So it's kind of like you've got to imagine you're measuring the hypotenuse of the triangle there. So in 9th edition, it would have been a 4 because you would measure horizontally, but now it's going to be a 5 in this situation. Bit of a change. Doesn't affect World Eaters too much, but I know Blood Angels players, CSM, especially anyone running cool lists with lots of Warp Talons and Raptors, are going to have to really figure out a good way to measure these diagonals without knocking a bunch of crap over, I think. Okay, anyway, let's wrap this one up. So these are the fundamentals. I hope this gave you some insight. I know this won't explain everything because I'm not the best person to explain this stuff, because I haven't actually played any games of 10th yet. I'm just going off what is written, and I'm someone that has to learn by playing. I've got to get it wrong a few times, but I've just tried to adapt what I understand of the core rules as they've been released to us into a way with a bit of a visual demonstration on how we can maximize our ability to get a head start on things, how we can start preparing, I guess. So yeah, let's cut this one off. Okay folks, hope this one helped you. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, consider subscribing. If you haven't already, please come and join our Discord. There should be a link below, and make sure to follow us on things like Spotify and Twitch and all the other gubbins. And it'd be great to chat to you at some point. Leave a comment and we'll try and get back to you. Alright, that's it for this one folks. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.